afternoon, Mr. Hadwin, Mrs. Spark, teachers, fellow students, and our esteemed adjudicators, Mr. Wagle, Deputy Headmaster, Mrs. Heelbert, the head of the English Middle School, and the two Year 11 students standing in for RGS's public speaking captains, Harshita Pedareddy and Sidmi Kanara.
Welcome to the 2020 Public Speaking Finals. I'm Darcy Malone, and my fellow MCs for this event are Aditi Menon, Lane Hodgetts, and Neil Damsanya. This event is always a highlight on the school calendar, and following some discrepancy regarding dates, some sleuthing in archives has determined that Day of Notables is in its 24th year.
As with most things, COVID-19 has impacted our Day of Notables, and while we've had an amazing day depicting our chosen people and entertaining the wider school community, we are saddened that our parents and other significant people weren't able to share in our day or be there for this event.
This year we have 9 finalists, and this afternoon they will entertain and inform us about the chosen Day of Notables characters. Their speeches, which they performed numerous times today in the main gardens of the school, are a culmination of the Year 6 Day of Notables unit. Students will speak in the first person as they take on the person as one of their notable people.
From a brief history in time to grand designs, George and the Big Bang and the Theory of Everything, Shyam Ashikumar, our first speaker, will showcase the genius that was Stephen Hawking.
We are a slightly advanced breed of monkeys on a minor planet orbiting an average star. But we can understand the universe, and that's what makes us very special. I, Stephen William Hawking, was born on the 8th of January 1942 in Oxford, UK. I have 2 sisters, Mary and Philippa, and one adopted brother, Edward. My parents are Frank and Isabel Hawking, who both worked in the Medical Institute. I started school at 6, where I attended Byron House School, before learning its progressive methods for my failure to read. So 2 years later, I moved to St. Albans School for Girls. Now, I know what you're thinking. Why would a boy attend a girls' school? In those days, boys and girls attended the same school until the age of 10. But I stayed there until I was 17 and went to college in Oxford. Despite my father's urging to focus on medicine, I decided to study physics. For the first year, I was bored and lonely, as I found most of the work ridiculously easy. I then moved to Cambridge to study cosmology and graduated with a first-class degree. When I was 20, I met the love of my life, Jane Barrow Wild, an English teacher. Devastatingly, a year later, I was diagnosed with an incurable disease, amyotrophic lateral sclerosis, a rare disease that affects movement and speech. I didn't allow the diagnosis to define me, and I kept on living a full life and made necessary adjustments. My wife and I had our first child, Robert Hawking, in 1968, and 2 years after that, our second child, Lucy. That same year, I became a member of Cambridge's Institute of Astronomy and did research for several years. In 1973, I published my first of many books, Large-Scale Structure of Space. When I was studying too, my research turned me into a star within the scientific world. I revealed that black holes aren't the information vacuums we had thought. I demonstrated that matter can escape the gravitational force of a collapsed star, and that black holes emit radiation until they exhaust their energy and evaporate. One of my other early achievements was validating that time had a beginning, that the laws of physics were slowly broken down very early in the history of the universe. 1 year prior to that, I joined the Department of Applied Mathematics and Theoretical Physics at Cambridge. In 1976, I was awarded a Denny Heumann Prize for Mathematical Physics and a Hughes Medal. When I was 35, I was appointed Professor of Gravitational Physics, and a year later, I was awarded an Einstein Award to recognize my high achievements in natural sciences. In 1979, I became the Lucasian Professor of Mathematics, one of the most prestigious academic posts worldwide. and was elected as a Fellow of the Royal Society. I continued my research, and at the age of 40, I was awarded a CBE from the Queen. 3 years later, I was given a gold medal of the Royal Astronomical Society, the highest award given by the RIS Council. In 1986, my life had changed forever due to my condition. I had lost my voice and began using a computer voice synthesizer, but this didn't stop me from working and winning awards. A year later, I was given a direct medal of the Institute of Physics for the development of weather and climate prediction systems. When I was 47, I was awarded Princess of Asturias Award for Concord for my humanitarianism. 6 years later, I divorced Jane and remarried Elaine Mason, a British nurse. The following year, my daughter Lucy and I published George's Secret Key to the Universe, and I became the first quadriplegic to ever board a zero-gravity flight. I finally retired from my position as Luke Asian Professor in 2009. On the 14th of March 2018, aged 76, I had finally succumbed to amyotrophic lateral sclerosis and died peacefully with my family at my side. My goal was simple. It was a complete understanding of the universe, why it was as it was, and why it existed at all. It matters if you don't give up. I never gave up. I am Stephen Hawking.
It is no secret that there is an incredible power in the written word, even if it is from the pen of a teenager. The words of Anne Frank have provided the world with an insight into one of the most horrifying eras in our history. Please welcome Lucy Perry Barr to enlighten us on this extraordinary story that is her life.
Shh, it's past 9 a.m. and if we make any loud noises around water, we will be found and taken away. I was born on the 12th of June 1929 into a loving Jewish family of my parents, Edith and also Frank, and my older sister Margot. Most of my childhood was spent in Frankfurt, Germany. It was quite nice here until a horrid man called Adolf Hitler became the leader. In 1933, our family fled to Amsterdam in the Netherlands in the hope that we would be safe from the Nazis. In 1935, I started school at a Dutch school and made lots of new friends. But in 1940, the Nazis invaded the Netherlands as well, and a lot of things changed. Like how Jews were only allowed to do their shopping at Jewish shops only, and we also weren't allowed to use public transport, such as cars, trams, or trains. I had to transfer to a Jewish school and wear a yellow star on my clothes to show that I was a Jew or a Jew dead. As the weeks went on, conditions were getting worse and worse, and more Jews were getting call-ups to German concentration camps. One day, my sister Margot got a letter saying she had to attend to a women's labor camp, but of course my parents refused. And it was the next day that we decided we had to go into hiding. My father had already organized a place for us to stay, above the factory he had worked at. It had a secret room hidden behind a bookcase, which we called the secret annex. It was quite painful moving all of our stuff, as we were only allowed to use 2 bags, otherwise it would look suspicious. We were in the secret annex for about a month, and then another Jewish family joined us, and the next day a dentist moved in as well, and I ended up sharing a room with him. Life in the annex made me feel sick, because it was not what I was used to. I could no longer run around the grass and play loudly with my friends. But after a few months, I got the hang of it. While we were in hiding, I got given a diary by my parents, and I named it Kitty, and I wrote my life into it. We had a set schedule for each day, and at 9 a.m., we would have to be silent, otherwise the factory workers beneath us would hear. Every night, I could hear the German planes flying past and dropping bombs. It is beyond words how scary it was, and each day we would pray to God that we would not be found. But on the morning of the 4th of August, 1944, just 2 years after we first climbed our steps and went into hiding, that a strange-looking van pulled up on Aussie Road. It was a German police force. We were separated and put into different camps. Margot and I, we were put into the Bergen-Belsen camp in Poland. Conditions at the camp were terrible. Every evening, chunks of bread were thrown at us, just like we were animals. Margot sadly got sick from a disease called typhus and passed away. And in February 1944, just 3 months before the Germans surrendered, at the age of 15, I got the disease as well and sadly lost my life. My father was the only survivor in the family. My diary was found and was given to him, and he then later published it as the diary of a young girl, and it became world famous. Because of my father and my diary, my legacy still goes on, as the girl who dreamed of a better world. As quoted in my diary, always remember to think of the beauty around you and be happy. For I am Anne Frank.
There is no doubt that our next character was a champion and considered royalty in the world of music. Vikram Chauhan will regale us with the life and the times of he who was just a poor boy, the one and only Freddie Mercury.
Is this the real life? Is this just fantasy? Caught in a landslide, no escape from reality. Open your eyes, look up to the skies and see. Bohemian Rhapsody, known to be my best song and one of the best in rock history. My name is Farrokh Bulsara, better known as Freddie Mercury. I was born on the 5th of September 1946 in a small town in Africa, Stone Town. My parents' names were Burmi and Jer, and my sister's name was Kashmira. My father was a civil servant and my mother was a housewife. I spent most of my childhood in India, where I began taking piano lessons at the early age of 7. When I was only 8, I was sent to study at a British-style boarding school for boys near Bombay, far away from my home. Now you may be wondering how my road to success began. Queen was not the first band I'd been in. In fact, I'd been in 3 other bands before. When I sang, people believed I had one of the best voices ever. I attended the Ealing College of Art, where I befriended several musicians, including my future band members. This led to Queen being formed in 1970. I have had a more than successful musical career. My first ever performance with Queen was on the 27th of June 1970. My first ever album with Queen was called Preordained in 1973. We would later go on to release 40 albums, many of them being hits. I enjoyed singing in front of fans more than anything in the world, and by that time, I had already won 2 Grammys for the songs Bohemian Rhapsody and We Will Rock You. My band Queen has created many classic songs, such as I Want to Break Free, singing We will rock you. We are the champions, my friend. Another one bites the dust, and the list goes on. Although I had a girlfriend who I loved very much, I came out bisexual in 1986. Around April 1987, I had become quite sick. I went to the hospital where they diagnosed me with a new disease at the time, AIDS. There was no cure for the disease, and death was near certain. Around this time, surprisingly, Queen was invited to one of the biggest charity concerts at that time, Live Aid in Wembley Stadium. All of the biggest bands would be performing, and I couldn't reject this offer. Keep in mind, no one knew about the deadly disease I was diagnosed with. other than my fellow band members. I would go on to perform one of the greatest performances of all time. Although there were many great bands performing in Live Aid, Queen's performance was the most memorable by far. I had become quite sick and struggled to walk. Things weren't looking too good for me. I died 4 years after the Live Aid concert, in peace. In my will, I left my former fiancée, Mary Austin, half of my net worth and my mansion. My band Queen will always be remembered as one of the best bands ever. I will always be remembered as one of the greatest performers of all time. Too late, my time has come, send shivers down my spine, body's aching all the time. Goodbye, everybody, I've got to go, gotta leave you all behind and face the truth.
There's no sweeping this one under the carpet or locking him away for a night or two in a museum. In a career spanning 7 decades, this entertainer has excelled at radio, TV, Broadway, singing, dancing, and making iconic movies. And now, Patrick Robertson will introduce us to Dick Van Dyke.
Charoon, Charoon! It's only pals! Step in time! Step in time! If you know these famous words, then you know who I am. I'm no other than Robert Wayne Van Dyke, or best known as Dick Van Dyke. I was born on December the 13th, 1925, in West Plains, Missouri, to my mother, Hazel, and my father, Lauren. When I was just 6 years of age, my younger brother, Jerry, was born. I grew up in Danville and went to school there. When I was young, I wanted to become a minister, but scrapped the idea after joining the high school drum club. There, I was taught how to sing, dance, and act. From then on, I performed in high school musicals whilst also working in a part-time job at a local radio station. In 1942, I tried to enlist in the US Air Force, but didn't make it in because they thought I was too tall. In 1943, when I was in special services, I performed entertaining shows in front of thousands of soldiers. I even hosted my very own radio show at this time. I was discharged from service in 1945 when the war ended. I tried advertising, but business wasn't for me. So, in 1947, I joined a lip-syncing act called the Meares. In 1948, I met my first wife-to-be, Margie Willett. We got married on a radio show called Bride and Groom, and they gave us our honeymoon because we were too poor to pay for it ourselves. We had 4 children named Carrie, Barry, Stacey, and Kristen. In 1959, I received a small role in the hit Broadway musical called Girls Against Boys, which lasted 2 weeks. A year later, I starred in another hit Broadway musical called Girls Against Boys, called Bye Bye Birdie. I received a Tony Award for my role as Elliott F. Peterson. Then, in 1961, I starred in my very own TV show called The Dick Van Dyke Show. It lasted 5 years, over 150 episodes, and I won 3 Emmy Awards. A turning point in my career was when I was cast as Bert in the 1964 movie musical classic, Mary Poppins, alongside the beautiful and amazingly talented Julie Andrews. I was awarded a Grammy for my role in this extraordinary production. My role included playing a chimney sweep, where I executed one of my most famous dance numbers, Step in Time. This dance number really showcased my fun, comedic, and American personality. Kick your knees up, step in time. Kick your knees up, step in time. Never need reason, never need rhyme. Kick your knees up, step in time. Then, in 1968, the new Dick Van Dyke Show premiered, but wasn't as successful as the original, only lasting 3 seasons.
I was fortunate enough to play another famous role in another large movie musical, playing the quirky inventor, Karaticus Potts, in the 1968 film Chitty Chitty Bang Bang. 1984 was a dark period of my life, as it saw Margie and I officially divorce. This heartbreak deeply affected me. I took a break from acting in films, but then, in 2006, I starred as the cunning security guard Cecil Fredericks in Night at the Museum. In 2012, I met my second wife-to-be, Arlene Silver, and we got married that same year. In 2013, I was awarded the Screen Actors Guild Life Achievement Award. That same year, I was driving my Jaguar and it burst into flames with me driving it. I was safe, thank goodness, with no burns, scratches, or any injuries. I'm always announcing my retirement. I'm still not retired. I still stay active, like going shopping, driving my Jaguar, yes, even after the 2013 incident, and traveling around the world. In 2018, I had the delightful chance to do a cameo appearance in Mary Poppins Returns, where I played Mr. Dawes Jr. This was very special for me, as I played Mr. Dawes Sr. in the original Mary Poppins movie. Not only do I want to be remembered for my comedic acting, dancing, singing, and movies, but also as a father and grandfather to many. This is my greatest responsibility and my proudest achievement. I have lived a wonderful, fulfilling life, but it's not over yet. So, when they tell you that you're finished and your chance to dance is done, that's the time to stand, to strike up the band and tell them that you've just begun. So, when life's a real pea super, you must choose to be a trooper, for your light comes with a lifetime guarantee. As you trip a little like fantastic with me.
Hailed as Australia's Golden Girl of Cycling, our next character has achieved what no other Australian has on the track. In doing so, she has overcome much adversity and proven her grit, determination and spirit. Please welcome Libby McDonald to the stage for a portrayal of Anna Meares.
Imagine this, soaring around the cycling track in the finals at the Athens Olympics in 2004. Racing march nemesis from Britain, Victoria Pendleton. I'm right at the finish line. My heart is pounding. That is gold! That's my first gold medal at the Olympics. You're probably wondering who I am. I'm one of Australia's best ever female track cyclists and the youngest Australian ever to win gold at the Olympics. I am Edna Everage. I was born on the 21st of September 1983 in Blackwater, Queensland, to my parents Marilyn and Anthony Meares. I'm the youngest of four. I have 2 older sisters, Karen and Tracy, and an older brother named Scott. When I was a child, I lived in a small town called Middlemount. That's where my love of running began, as I started BMX at the age of 5 and kept at it till the age of 9. In primary, I went to Middlemount State School. Since it was a small town, we rode our bikes everywhere, like to the shops, friends' houses, and to and from school. I started competitive cycling at the age of 11, and I've always looked up to my older sister Kerry because she was a very good cyclist. My first coach was Ken Reggie Tucker, and there's a velodrome in Rockhampton named after him that I trained at when I moved here for high school. I went to Rockhampton State High School. My parents had to take Kerry and I all around Australia for state championships during our childhood. We were a very competitive family, let me tell you, both on and off the track. I remember Kerry and I used to always race each other to friends' houses and to shops. When I got the call that I'd been selected to be in the Australian track cyclist team to go to the Olympics, at the age of 21, I was shocked and excited. Since then, I competed at 4 consecutive Olympic Games, starting in 2004, and I have won 18 gold medals, 16 silver medals, and 10 bronze medals. I am also the youngest Australian ever to win gold at the Olympics. In Los Angeles, I went to the Track Cyclists World Cup in January, less than 7 months from the Beijing Olympics. Unfortunately, I had a horrific fall, falling at 65 kilometers per hour. My injuries from that fall included a fractured neck, dislocated shoulder, and torn ligaments. And doctors later told me that I was just millimeters away from spending the rest of my life in a wheelchair. I was in hospital for about 1 week, and I had to go to the physio constantly for weeks. Determined to restart my career, it was a very hard time trying to get back on my bike, but in the end, it only took me 1.5 months. I had my neck brace on for about 2 months, so I hadn't done a lot of cycling. Eventually, I made it to the Beijing Olympics. In the heats, I just missed out of the finals to Laura Schwank, but a few minutes later, the officials told me that she has been disqualified because she illegally entered into my lane and that I made it into the finals. I was so close to winning gold, versing March nemesis Victoria Pendleton. It was very exciting getting back racing on my bike. Winning silver, I was the only one in the Australian track cyclist team to win a medal at those Olympics. That was a very proud moment for me. My family was very proud of me too, for persevering through my horrific injury and fighting through all the obstacles. After I retired, after my last race at the Rio Olympics, it was a very hard time for me, because I didn't have a schedule to stick to, like waking up early and then going to the gym. That was a huge thing for me. For the past 5 years, I've been doing motivational speaking, but I can't do it right now because I gave birth to a beautiful little girl, Evelyn, at 12:07 a.m. on the 10th of February 2020, with my partner Nick Flyber, who is an Australian sprint cyclist coach who I met 4 years ago. In the future, I want to continue being a motivational speaker because it has been a big change for me. However, I also want to be a stay-at-home mom for my daughter. Would you believe it? I am great friends with my arch nemesis, Victoria, and we still keep in touch from time to time. I don't just want to be remembered as a great track cyclist, but a kind and caring person and a devoted mum. I'd also like to be remembered for my perseverance and bravery. I am Edna Meares.
Considered to be the creator of a true Australian icon, our next character certainly had vision and a passion for comedy. George Pentecost will introduce us to the man behind the lilac hair, flamboyant glasses, and the Gladio lies, Barry Humphries.
Hello, possums. Isn't it wonderful to be here at the 24th annual Rockhampton Grammar School Day of Notables? Now, you're probably wondering who I am. Well, I am the Australian housewife gigastar, Dame Edna Everage. Now, possums, let me tell you a little bit about myself, as my story is somewhat different to everyone else's. Would you believe it if I told you I was created in 1955 in the back of a bus by a man called Barry Humphries? I was born Edna May Beasley and was married to Norm Everage up until his death in 1988. Norm and I had 4 adorable children: Kenny, Bruce, Valmay, and Lois. A rather unfortunate thing happened to Lois when she was just an infant. We were on a family campout in the outback when she was abducted by a rogue koala. It was a terribly sad time. Bruce is an engineer in South Melbourne, and my youngest, Kenny, lives in London and is a fashion designer, and he designs all of my fabulous frocks. Why, darlings, you see this gorgeous frock I'm wearing today? It is one of my favorites. And see these feathers? They actually belong to a very rare Australian bird, which is now extinct, as it donated all of its feathers to me. My first appearance came in 1955 with the Melbourne Theatre Company as Mrs. Norm Everage, an average Australian housewife from Mooney Commons, a suburb in Melbourne, for a sketch entitled Olympic Hostess. I left Australia and moved to London in 1959, and my international debut came in the early 1960s at a small nightclub in West London called The Establishment. I first popped up on the telly about 15 years ago in the film The Adventures of Barry Mackenzie, performing as Barry's Aunt Edna. It was at the end of this film that then Australian Prime Minister Gough Whitlam bestowed me with the title of Dame, and from then on I was to be known as Dame Edna. Possums, it was one of the greatest experiences of my life. Since then, I have gone on to be one of the most enduring comic characters of all time. I have hosted the Australian TV Week Logie Awards a record 5 times, and have even appeared on New York's famous Broadway. In 2005, I celebrated my 50th birthday. Australia Post featured me on a postage stamp, and the Lord Mayor of Melbourne presented me with a key to the city. Enough about me for now. Let me tell you more about that Barry Humphries fellow, because without him, I would never have existed. Barry was also born in Melbourne, and like me, he has 4 children. He's an Australian actor, comedian, artist, and author. However, he is best known for writing and playing his onstage and television alter egos, such as myself, and that vile Sir Les Patterson. You see, Possums, I really am just a fictitious character whose life has been entirely created by Barry. Oh, and darlings, he even published this book, My Gorgeous Life, and it is my autobiography. You can get yourself a copy from any good bookstore. It is simply wonderful. In 2019, I toured Australia for my final My Gorgeous Life tour, after which I properly retired. Now, Possums, next time you get the chance to visit Melbourne after all this nasty COVID business is done, make sure you visit Dame Edna Place, a street named in my honour. And don't forget to have your selfie taken with my statue at Docklands. Finally, I want to be remembered as someone who helped all of you darlings forget about your worries and to laugh a little. Now, some advice for all the gorgeous possums here today. Never be afraid to laugh at yourselves. After all, you could be missing out on the joke of the century. I am Barry Humphries' alter ego, Dame Edna Everage.
The next performance by Tossie will bring the life to the man who had a dream and changed the course of history through his beliefs, actions, and ultimate sacrifice. Prepare to be impressed with his depiction of Martin Luther King Jr.
I have a dream that one day, even the state of Mississippi, a state sweltering with the heat of injustice, sweltering with the heat of oppression, will be transformed into an oasis of freedom and justice. I have a dream that my 4 little children will one day live in a nation where they'll not be judged by the color of their skin, but by the content of their character. I, Dr. Martin Luther King Jr., an African-American civil rights activist, was born on the 15th of January, 1929, in Atlanta, Georgia. Growing up as the middle child in a strong Christian home, my father was Reverend Martin Luther King Sr., and my mother was Alberta King. My father's vigorous stance against the system of white people being more important than black people set the basis of our childhood. As I grew up, I garnered a large vocabulary from reading dictionaries and consistently using my lexicon. When I was 13, I skipped 9th grade and enrolled in Booker T. Washington High School, where I later bypassed grade 11. At 15, I passed the entrance exam to Morehouse College, where I played freshman football and graduated with a Bachelor of Arts in Sociology. Although my family was deeply involved with the church, I questioned my religion, and this continued through my early adolescent years. However, a few years later while at college, I attended Bible class, renewed my faith, and envisioned pastoring. When leaving college at 18, I enrolled in Crozet Theological Seminary. I came under the guidance of President Benjamin E. Meares from my former college, and he influenced my spiritual development. He was an outspoken advocate for racial equality and encouraged me to view Christianity as a potential force for social change. I graduated with Bachelor of Divinity. Doctoral studies followed at Boston University, where I received a PhD. At 25, I became the pastor of Dexter Avenue Baptist Church. I also married Curtis Scott, and we had 4 children: Yolanda, Martin Luther King III, Dexter, and Bernice. Due to 2 incidents where 2 black women refused to give up their seats for Caucasians on a bus, I led the Montgomery bus boycott, which lasted for 385 days. The boycott became so intense that segregationists bombed my house, and I was arrested, although my role transformed me into a national figure. The Southern Christian Leadership Conference, SCLC, was founded by me and about 60 other activists, and it was created to harness moral authority and organizing power of black churches. The group was inspired by the crusades of the greatest evangelist of all time, Billy Graham. In 1963, I led the march in Washington, where I gave the most famous and greatest speech of all time in front of the Lincoln Memorial. I have a dream. Prompted by a fellow activist, I deviated from my original prepared speech to include my beliefs that all men were created equal, and stated that I believe that one day there will be freedom and justice for the black race, so that all Americans will be able to unite as one nation and live out the true meaning of America's creed. I led many protests to abolish racial discrimination and gave more than 2,000 speeches. All were nonviolent, yet I was jailed for short periods 29 times. Not for what I did, but for who I was. On the 3rd of August 1968, I gave a prophetic speech where I said that I have been to the mountaintop and I've seen the promised land. I said I wasn't worried about anything. I wasn't going to fear man, and that my eyes have seen the glory of the coming of the Lord. Unfortunately, that was my last speech, because at 6:01 p.m. the next day, at Lorraine Motel, Memphis, while I stood on the 2nd floor balcony, James Earl Ray, a confirmed racist, took aim and pulled the trigger, shooting me in the head. Despite being rushed to hospital and having emergency surgery, I died. I had my life stolen from me because of who I was and what I stood for. A powerful and influential African American. Darkness cannot drive out darkness. Only light can do that. Hate cannot drive out hate. Only love can do that. The time is always right to do what is right. We must learn to live together as brothers or perish together as fools. I am Dr. Martin Luther King Jr.
You may have heard of our next character, Monica, the Lousyville Lip, or you just might know him as the one who floats like a butterfly and stings like a bee, or maybe just as the greatest. He is no other than the boxing great, Muhammad Ali, and Saban Doss will now tell his story.
float like a butterfly, sting like a bee. Your hands can't hit what your eyes can't see. Now you see me, now you don't. You think you will, but I know you won't. My name is Muhammad Ali, and I was born on the 17th of January 1942 in Louisville, Kentucky. My father, Cassius Marcellius Clay Sr., was a politician, while my mother, Odessa Lee Clay, was a domestic worker. I had one sister and 4 brothers, and I attended West End School in Kentucky. But I was dyslexic, so I couldn't see that well. At the age of 12, I discovered my talent for boxing after a thief stole my bike. I told the officer, who was trying to figure out who stole it, that I wanted to find and beat up the person who stole my bike. He responded by saying that I should learn how to fight before I start challenging people. So later that year, I started going to the gym with my dad and his trainer started training me occasionally. In my days as a boxer, I have had a lot of achievements. Like in 1960, I had my first fight, and it was against Tony Hansager, who was also the chief priest of Fayetteville. And then, from 1960 to 1963, I defeated professional boxers such as Tony Esperati, Jim Robinson, Donnie Fleeman, and Lemar Clark, who had won his previous 40 bouts by knockout. My biggest fight had to be in 1964 against Sonny Liston, who was the world heavyweight champion. I thought I had already lost, but I never gave up hope, and then in the 7th round, I knocked him out and became the world heavyweight champion. And then everything went downhill in 1967, as I got banned from boxing and I lost my title for refusing to be drafted into Army service. I also got sentenced 5 years to prison and had to pay a $10,000 fine. However, I paid a bond and I remained free. Still, I could not box until 1970. When I started boxing again, I participated in an event called the Rumble in the Jungle, where boxers had to verse each other for a chance to win $5 million. I only entered it so I could verse George Foreman, the new world heavyweight champion. And when I got the chance to verse him, I was confident that I would win, but others weren't, so they cheered for Foreman. A few rounds in, almost knocked out, I thought I was going to lose. But then, in the break, I was trying to come up with a strategy. And after a few rounds of plummeting to the ground, I finally came up with a strategy to absorb his punches and tire him out. My strategy worked and he got super tired. And then I saw my chance and knocked him out and became the world heavyweight champion once again. I died on the 3rd of June 2016 in Phoenix, Arizona. I died at the age of 74 because I had been suffering from a disease known as the Parkinson's disease. My family members later put my tomb back in Louisville, Kentucky. I will be remembered for being one of the youngest world heavyweight champions and for my comebacks, like in 1964 when I was versing Sonny Liston. I thought I was going to lose, but then I saw his punching pattern, so I kept on dodging and punching, dodging and punching. I may have won most of my fights, but I did lose a few. One was to a guy named Joe Frazier. He beat me in 1971 in the Bahamas. But then, in 1974, I got the chance to verse him again, and this time I did beat him. I hope I will go down in history as the greatest boxer in the entire world. Don't count the days, make the days count. I am Muhammad Ali.
Not happy with the injustice of racism, our next character used nothing but the colours brown and blue to draw attention to the issue and initiate change. Prepare yourselves as diversity educator Jane Elliott makes her way to the stage in the form of Tanina Nezig-Moon.
You are not born racist. You are born into a racist society. And like anything else, if you can learn it, then you can unlearn it. But some people choose not to unlearn it because they're afraid that they'll lose power if they share it with other people. We are afraid of sharing power. That is what it's all about. Martin Luther King Jr. was an African-American minister and activist who was killed. No, let me rephrase that. Was assassinated because of his race. because he was black. That is utterly unacceptable in my books. That drew me past my limit. I am the anti-racism and American diversity and human rights teacher who has devoted my whole life to making people believe that there is only one race in this world, and that is the human race. I am Jane Elliott. I was born on the 30th of November, 1933, in Richville, Iowa, United States. Ironically enough, I was born in the year Hitler gained his power. Although my childhood was full of very sad stories of people whose family members had been killed by the Nazis, I did have an amazing time during my school, completing elementary school and high school in Richville with my 4 other siblings. After I graduated from high school, I attended the Northern Iowa University, studying American diversity and human race. During university, I met the love of my life, Elliott. We dated for about 2 months, and then, out of the blue, Darryl proposed to me. A couple of months after we got married, we found out that I was pregnant with my beautiful daughter, Sarah. After I finished maternity leave from my previous job, I decided to quit and pursue my dream of becoming a teacher. I applied to several different schools, one of which was Ritchieville Elementary School. I really wanted the job at Ritchieville because I went to school there, and I wanted all the children going there to experience a fun and safe learning environment. And guess what? I got the job for a 3rd grade class. I can still remember about 12 months after I started teaching, I got asked a question by one of my 3rd grade students at the time, Stephen, who asked, "The king was shot yesterday. Why'd they shoot him?" I didn't really know how to explain this to little 8 and 9-year-olds, but I thought the best way was to do an engaging experiment called Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes to teach the children and their parents about racism. Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes is where the brown-eyed people get treated as if they are better than the blue-eyed people, as the blue-eyed people are said to be dumber, as they have too little melanin in their eyes, which causes too much sunlight to go through their eyes, which will damage your brain cells. After the first day of the experiment is over, I swap the higher class and the lower class. So now the blue-eyed people are the higher class and the brown-eyed people are the lower class. After the 2-day experiment is over, I asked the children or adults how it felt to be treated like this, when you can't control what colored eyes you have. They all said they hated it, and they never ever wanted it to happen to them again. Then I tell them that there are real people in their day-to-day lives who experience this. These are the people of color. How do you think they feel when they can't control what colored skin they have? This experiment has led to me appearing on the Jimmy Fallon Show and Oprah Winfrey Show multiple times. The impact of this was that so many people got to learn about the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes experiment, racism, discrimination, and how people on a daily basis get killed and abused because of their skin color. At 86, I have not stopped educating and protesting about racism, and I still get asked, to this day, can you please teach my children about racism, discrimination, and how important it is to treat people the way that you want to be treated. I don't only want to be remembered as the woman who created the Blue Eyes, Brown Eyes experiment. I want to be remembered as the woman who helped people realize that there is only one race in this world, and that is the human race. When am I going to quit? When racists quit. Do I have a job for a lifetime? I'm afraid so. I am Jane Elliott.
Boys and girls, I'll give the adjudicators just a chance to have a little bit of a chance to work out what they're going to do. A couple of things I'd like to say. First of all, congratulations to all of you, all the Year 6s, for what you did today. It was outstanding. I had an opportunity to probably see about 25 of you, which wasn't enough, but I did thoroughly enjoy catching up with you. It's wonderful what we do here because we learn a lot about the different people all around the world and what they've actually done to make them notable people. And I'm hoping that not only your character, but the other characters that you picked up as well, you can do. Today, this afternoon, was a little bit of a walk down memory lane, in part for me, about what I listened to. So I just thought I'd write down a couple of quick notes. For Stephen Hawkins, Cheyenne, I didn't realise that he couldn't read when he really struggled with reading. And yet, look at what he was to be able to do. I don't remember a lot about him growing up as a kid, but I remember in his later years seeing him in the wheelchair and hearing the computer voice. That was kind of an amazing character. Anne Frank, do yourselves a favour, read the Diary of Anne Frank sometime in your life, every one of you. Brilliant book. It's true. That's not a fiction book. It's her diary of what her life was like. I was lucky enough to go to Amsterdam with my wife maybe a year or two ago, and the house is there. You can actually do a tour of the house. While you're there, make sure you go and have a look at some of the small Jewish museums and places. Riveting, amazing, really interesting. Amsterdam. Make sure it's on your list. Vikram, you can sing. That blew me away. And Freddie Mercury is my favourite male singer of all time. He is brilliant. Growing up, Queen was my favourite band. My wife and I went down to Inglewood the weekend, and I can tell you I had a double album of Queen playing all the way down and all the way back. Queen is an amazing band. Some great songs that they've got, so did a wonderful job there. Patrick with Dick Van Dyke. I grew up watching the Dick Van Dyke show on TV in black and white because it didn't have colour TV in those days. So seeing Dick Van Dyke being performed out here was just brilliant for me, so thank you for bringing that back to me. Anna Meares. In 2013, Anna Meares came to our school with her sister Kerry. You may have been in prep or may have been a bit before that time, but she actually came on stage and we interviewed her in front of all the primary school students. She spoke to us. She was amazing, so was her sister Kerry, and she spoke about growing up at Gracemere and doing a lot of her training as well. She also told me that she was training to be a teacher, but she never did get to a teacher, because if she did finish the training, I was going to give her a call and see if she wanted a job at some point down the road. I reckon she'd be cool to have it at Rockhampton Grammar School. Barry Humphries. Oh my dear, I have seen Barry Humphries in concert in Rockhampton. It was a long time ago. He is hilarious. Absolutely has everyone in stitches of laughter. It's probably a lot more adult humour than children humour, but he is very funny. And when he goes off at half time, he gets dressed up as Sir Les Patterson, and he comes out and he's got pizza stains all over him, he's drinking beer, and when he talks, if you sit in the front 3 rows, you are going to get wet. He is going to spit on you as he talks. He's a horrible person, Sir Les Patterson. But Dame Edna was fantastic. Martin Luther King, what a lovely, I think he said, we need to learn to live together as friends rather than die together as fathers. What a massive statement. And particularly in the world today, particularly in parts of the US today, it's very apt. He did a great job with that one there. Muhammad Ali. Well, first of all, Muhammad Ali, as a boxer, had amazing feet. He would dance, and he would annoy the people fighting, because they'd walk up to hit him and he'd step around them. Come on, come and hit me. No, you can't hit me. And he did that all the time on things. But 3 quotes, 3 things I want to talk to you about. The best athlete in the world was Michael Jordan. The great one was Wayne Gretzky with ice hockey. But the greatest is Muhammad Ali. Everyone my age would say that, so it's quite amazing. And the last one that we had with Jane Elliott and Selena, fantastic, what a lovely quote. One race, the human race. And as you look around this room here, we have so many cultures, and yet we don't have any issues at all. And if the rest of the world would be like you guys, life would be a much better place. Thank you to everyone. I'll hand over to the adjudicators for their final summation. Thank you.
Thank you all for your performances, and to our audience for their attention throughout this afternoon. We would like to take this opportunity to thank the Year 6 teachers, Mrs. Pickett, Mr. Rooks and Mr. Saunders, for all of their guidance and support throughout this unit of study. It has opened our eyes and made us appreciate the many industrious, heroic, and memorable people in both the modern day and in history.
I would now like to call up to the stage all the finalists, Mr. Hadron, the adjudicators who will present the certificates and announce the Year 6 winners of the 2020 public speaking competition.
Sorry, we have no idea what we're doing either. I'd like to start off by just saying wow. Wow.
That was
Wow.
It was absolutely a wonderful thing to experience. Like, from the first moment, I was completely struck by how talented you all were. I mean, it's just impossible to comprehend. Like, I couldn't even speak English properly when I was 11, so you guys are doing a lot better than me. And yeah,
I mean, I remember when I did Day of Notables, it must have been 5 years ago now, and it's bringing back so many memories to see all you guys up there, and a lot of familiar faces, kids I've known since they were, I don't know, like babies. But yes, congratulations to everyone, you did so well. Honestly, there was a point difference between all of you, and it was too hard to judge who spoke best.
One person.
To just pick one person, that's completely true.
So much capability and so much talent here today on the stage. I'm truly amazed. Thank you so much for your performances. It's beautiful.
Just to start off with, we've got a certificate for every finalist. So first of all, we've got George, and I believe he was Dame Edna.
Libby McDonald, who was absolutely phenomenal.
And Lucy,
Heriba,
and Frank.
Patrick Robertson, Shyam Ashok Kumar, Soban Dost,
Tanina Nezakmoon. Tossi Adigbija.
and last but not least, Vikram Shahan. Now came the hard part, choosing our winner. And let me tell you, it was very close. It was an incredibly hard task, but we got there in the end. And our winner for the Year 6 public speaking competition for 2020 is
Tossi. Congratulations again to all of our finalists.
We thank the adjudicators again for this.
Again, well done to all our finalists and a big congratulations to Tossi. Please join us in thanking our adjudicators for all their assistance throughout the event.